chance.
Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Manchester City heading to the Vitality Stadium for what could prove to be a vitally important game. What a massive game of football this is going to be for Manchester City, with Liverpool picking up all 3 points last night against Luton. I've got to admit it, they looked impressive. And I was rubbing my hands at half-time thinking Maybe could we see a little bit of a miracle, a potential miracle? Luton snatching something at Anfield would have been unbelievable. But even when they went 1-0 down, I was thinking the first half they had chance after chance. And Liverpool were a very good outfit yesterday with lots of injuries as well. That's the alarming side of it, as well as the fact that they had so many injuries. And factoring the fact that they've got these players in, you know, I am concerned about Manchester City's performances. The results have been good for Manchester City. Let's not, ruin too much of our form, because I think we've been playing okay, but the results have been there. We've been winning the games that we've needed to win, albeit the Chelsea game we dropped points. And I thought I'd throw a bit of title jeopardy in there. Manchester City never lose to Bournemouth. And I've seen Anthony getting wound up already. Don't be jinxing us now, Johnny. I agree with you, mate. I knew that was going to trigger some superstitious people. But I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. Not superstitious, just a little stitious. But honestly, I'm excited for the game. I will be doing a watch-along. 5:30 kickoff in the UK as well, so it's going to be another 5:30 kickoff that we had like last weekend against Chelsea, which didn't prove out to be too good for Manchester City. But like I said, we have never lost a game against Bournemouth, which is incredible to think about, really, because it only goes back to recent history. In fact, in 1987, which is the year before I was born, was our first fixture against Bournemouth, and that was down in Division 2. In our entire history, we've drawn 2 games against them. The rest have been Manchester City wins. They have never taken a single solitary point off us in the Premier League, which is unbelievable. So talk about the whipping boys for Manchester City. Talk about bogey teams. I've never known any record like that, head-to-head record, where not a single point has been achieved from one team off the other in the Premier League. I can't think of any team, certainly not with the amount of matches that we're talking about as well, with an aggregate score of 44-9, which spans over 13 matches. That's not even that many matches. And we've scored 44 goals against Bournemouth. And recent history as well, that's not in Bournemouth's favour. They haven't won a game since Boxing Day. So going back all the way to Boxing Day was their last win. But prior to that, Bournemouth looked all right, They were playing some decent football. If I remember rightly, they drew to Villa. That was a decent game. They went to Old Trafford and won 3-0. Who else did they beat? They beat Fulham 3-0. That was a comfortable win as well, a really comfortable win. Recently, though, they've drawn to Newcastle, which actually was a good point. It was actually quite a good point, in truth. But yeah, before I go any further into this preview, drop a like and subscribe if you're new. Please do. Let's help grow this community, this Manchester City community that I'm trying to build. Going live, I'm going to try and go live a little bit more often, certainly with previews and things around the match, your match day, obviously the watch along. Come and join me for that. Previews, match reactions and player ratings, things like that. I think that makes a little bit more sense to talk to you guys. Let's see who's in here. We've got Maskless, you were calling me an amateur yesterday, so hopefully I've upped my game a little bit for you, my friend. Hopefully my streaming standard of skills is up a level to your standards, so hopefully I'm adequate rather than amateur today. But yeah, good to see you, mate, beyond belief. And Hussein Luiki as well. Nah, City ain't letting this lick. Mate, I hope you're right, mate. I feel like we should be beating them, to be honest, because their form isn't great. Like I said, they haven't won since Boxing Day. 2-2 at Newcastle. It's Dominic Solanke. In fact, I do worry about their setup, because I feel like they've got the players to damage us with Marcus Tavernier and Antoine Semenyo. Just wondering what he can deliver, in terms of what sort of dish could he offer. What's on Semenyo? Shall I go? I'll leave. I'll call it a day. Call it a day on that one. That was a terrible, terrible joke. What's on Semenyo? Awful. Woeful, in fact. Woeful. But yeah, it is a threat. They've got pace. The point I'm trying to make is the pace that we, in the particular positions that we've been exposed from, with Kyle Walker pushing forward, Nathan Ake, who could be returning, going to his former club, in Bournemouth as well, going up against the Cherries. He's been pushing forward, and Gvardiol, who's injured. Akanji against Brentford, he was pushing forward. I don't think we were quite as exposed as we have been in previous games against Brentford, like the likes of Chelsea and Spurs in particular. They ran riot down those wings. And I'm hoping Bournemouth don't have that same level of freedom. Brentford still did it, mind you. They still managed to find those pockets of space and push into those channels, which was alarming. How easy it was for Brentford to do it at the Etihad. Now, going to the Vitality Stadium, they've not got a great record there this season. And their recent record isn't great, in truth. But you know they've got the speed to do the damage. That's my concern. That's my concern with this whole game, as well as the fact that, you know, if they get down those channels, they've got an absolute worldie of a striker, you know, who's got 16 goals and 4 assists to his name in all competitions this season. In Dominic Solanke, spearheading the Bournemouth counter-attacks. You know, he's not a slouch either. He's a big guy. So he's like a perfect number 9. He's the perfect type of striker to play against Manchester City, and teams that have that ability to play those types of strikers. Your Ivan Tonys, Nicholas Jackson was used to good effect for Chelsea against City. Harry Kane's always haunted us with his ability to hold up the play, allow the wingers to join him, lay it off to them, and then go for it like a bull out of a gate. Just sprint, full attack, counter-attack, get into those pockets of space, counter-attack, fired across the face of goal for what's proven to be quite an open amount of space, and potentially, you know, Dominic Solanke could make use of that. But yeah, MJ window cleaning, good to see you. Anfield wank bag is at it again. Just a donut. Ake scored against Bournemouth last time. Did he? I can't remember. I remember the last game was 6-1. So in another example of City, that was 6 goals being added to what would have been at the time our 38 aggregate score. 38-8 it would have been prior to our last game, but since our last game we made it an aggregate of 44-9 against Bournemouth. If Ake is one of them, I don't remember that. What I do remember though is Jeremy Doku, 4 assists and a goal. That was the Doku that we were thinking, fuck, you know, what have we got here? What have we got on our hands here? This player is unbelievable. The next Lionel Messi was being... Too much of that goes around, in my opinion. Too much of the next this player, the next Neymar, the next Messi, the next Ronaldo. He's Jeremy Doku. Doku's Doku for me. I don't think he's anything like Messi. Couldn't be any further from Messi, in my opinion. I think he's so far apart. Dribbling ability is insane, but like that performance was sensational. His goal was I still don't know whether it was intentional, whether he scuffed that goal. I don't know whether you remember it, but his shot was a weird one. You know, it sort of bounced to him and he took it quite well, but it looked like it hit his heel and it sort of helped how it went into the back of the net. I remember the whole performance was fantastic. The goal, I'm not sure he meant it, but the 4 assists, he absolutely meant that. Could we see that again from Manchester City? If we can see even half of that level of performance, because half of that performance would be 2 assists, which means we should be winning the game in truth. Whether he's even going to start, though, is another separate question, because I think Oscar Bobb's stepped up to the plate recently. You know, we saw him come on against Newcastle, which Bournemouth have recently been to St James's Park and struggled. We went there and struggled ourselves, mind you, but Oscar Bobb came on and turned it round and won us the game, and I don't think he did his record or his reputation as a new upcoming Manchester City player. He didn't do any damage to that against Brentford. If anything, he probably upped it just a little bit. I think he could have done more. I think obviously if he gets himself a goal or assist, we're waxing lyrical about Oscar Bobb. But he didn't do an amazing thing. It was just that one special moment for me that was just like a real eye-opener. Again, just a reminder of the capabilities of Oscar Bobb. That touch where he knocks it past the fullback. I think it might have been Zanka for Brentford, where he pushes it past him. And not only did he push it past him, how well did he finish it? And he was just unfortunate that Ben Mee was stood on the touchline and waiting to clear it. You know, because he didn't lash at it either. The level of composure for such a young age as well is scary. It's scary. Douglas Wright, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing good. The Cherries have a bit of pace and quality up front, he says. Absolutely, they do, you know. With Tavernier and Semenyo. That's like a combination, I've just realised. A Taverna is another, that's in Greece. So I'm going to Taverna to see what's on Semenyo. Hey, on the 2 wings, you've got to, do you see what I did? Combine the 2, you've got a Taverna and a menu. I've over-explained the joke to the point where I've ruined the joke, but still, I thought that was good. I'm quite pleased with myself with that. Live on air, coming up with bollocks like that. Not bad, eh? nor has Man City needs to reevaluate their tactics and goal scoring skills. Reevaluate the tactics potentially, certainly at the back. Appreciate that, Alistair. Thanks, mate. Tuna as well. Good to see you. Devious Ducky as well. Newcastle are definitely beating Arsenal. Well, they've got, that's a tough game actually, isn't it? And Arsenal not dropping points, but, effectively, they did lose the game and they're in big trouble for the case of they'll probably beat Porto back at the Emirates, let's be honest. But that was a real, I said it before the game as well. I said it before the Champions League game. How are Arsenal going to fare in this title race? Because I feel like they've thrown all their eggs into the Premier League basket. And I think they're treating the Champions League as a bit of a luxury, a bit of a let's see what happens. See what happens. What will be, that type of attitude. And I felt like they sort of like coasted through the group stages. They lost to someone in the group stages that they absolutely shouldn't be losing to as well, mind you. But no, I do remember it's been a bit lacklustre from Arsenal in the Champions League. And can they split their resources, their mental resources from the Premier League to the Champions League? Whereas City, we can do that. We can split it across 3 competitions effectively. We might struggle to do it this season and win all 3. I think we almost definitely won't, in my opinion. But there's still that option for City. We know we can do that. We can do that. Can Arsenal do that? Can Liverpool do that? Because they've got the Europa League. Now, that's almost like an interesting one for Liverpool as well, because I think that's a dangling carrot for them. That's a tease. Because the Europa League, albeit, it's the Europe's B Cup, isn't it? It's nothing as prestigious as the Champions League. Liverpool would much rather be in the Champions League. But they've got the squad to win it. They should be winning the Europa League. That's another piece of silverware that it's not like they can disregard it. So Liverpool could go into the Europa League and try and have to go in all like balls deep into this Champions League, into the Europa League, sorry. And then that could be a distraction for the Premier League. So there's question marks that are going to start piling up for our rival teams. And now we've already seen it at the very first question, the very first hurdle, which I thought was going to be a test for Arsenal to see if they can split their resources. They've failed and they've lost the game. So we're going to see how they come back against Newcastle. Newcastle are definitely beating Arsenal, Devious. I'm not entirely sure. It's a definite. But certainly it's possible. Liverpool have got their distractions this weekend as well, which is an absolute opportunity for City. It's a massive opportunity for us to cement our place, along the sides of Arsenal and Liverpool with the same amount of games played. And I can't emphasise the importance of how this game's just killer. We have to win this game to really pile the pressure back on to Liverpool, who have not got an easy game. And I feel like that could play a part into their mentality, into their way of thinking, because as much as I think there was a part of me that was thinking Arsenal are being neglected a little bit, and because City fans, we know what Liverpool are capable of. As a football club, we know what they're capable of. And I mean, if you're a City fan, I imagine if you had to pick a rival who you would rather go into a title race against, I think most City fans would pick Arsenal. I'd rather face them in a title race. I don't want to face Liverpool in a title race because we know what they can do. But the fact is they've got the League Cup final coming up. How are they going to fare knowing? Because we know that in our history, when we've won a trophy, in particular the League Cup, when we've gone and won a League Cup, we've used that as a springboard and had good seasons after that. We've used that confidence that we gained from collecting a trophy, albeit it's probably the least important trophy, barring the Community Shield, of course. But, it's the bottom end of our trophy list. It's not priority number 1, is it? The League Cup's down there. But it's still a massive celebration. It's a massive confidence boost. And I think it could be really good for Liverpool if they were to beat Chelsea, who, they put up a really good performance against us. It's going to be a test for a very injury-riddled Liverpool to go up against Chelsea, distracted by the League Cup. If they win that, though, they'll come back to the Premier League with a big point to prove, confidence running through their veins, and that's scary. Good to see you, Section 20. And Tuna as well, my friend. Hope you're good. K-Line, Doku needs to improve his finishing. Yeah, I think I need to see more end product. It's not just finishing. I'd forgive him if he's not getting goals. I want to see more quality into the box from Jeremy Doku. That's what I really want to see. Bob is very comfortable with the ball, says Tuna. I agree, mate. I was saying it yesterday. that I think he's like a nice amalgamation of Grealish and Doku, to be honest, Oscar Bob. In fact, what did I say? I think I said he's 60% Grealish, 40% Doku, you know, if I had to pick a lane. But Tuna's got another joke. Man United, there you go. Tuna, Akanji, 0 misplaced passes in the Brentford game in the final third. Mate, that's insane, because I remember the stats. He had 98% passing accuracy against Brentford, and it's not like, oh, they were all sideways passes either, because he was penetrating lines. He absolutely was penetrating lines. There was one brilliant ball in that first half that he thread through to Oscar Bob. Lovely bit of football from Akanji. And if I remember rightly, that was 108 passes in total with 106 completed. And like I said, it's not your sideways passes. It's not 5 yard there, 5 yard that way. It's like, they were like 10, 15 yard passes, some diagonal balls to Kyle Walker at times. So it's not a bad a player to have in midfield. And maybe in that game, we saw why Pep trusts him in midfield. Personally, I would still rather see John Stones in there, because I think he's a bit more of a cute player, you know, not physically. He's not a bad-looking bloke, is he? But I'm not saying he's cute in that way. Cute in his passing range of vision. Do you know what I mean? That ability to see a pocket. I think he's a bit of a better player in that regard to Akanji, and he's a bigger physical presence than Akanji as well. Akanji's not soft. You know, it's difficult to get past him, but I think John Stones just reads the game a little bit better. I think his positional awareness is a little bit better than Akanji, but Akanji did a great job, and I think he's put a dilemma to Pep Guardiola as to who to play in midfield. Should he opt to play either Akanji or Stones? Against Bournemouth, I don't know. It's a tough one. Whether the fact that we're away, I think we do need to have some solidity in there. The fact that Solanke's there, the pace that Bournemouth have got on the wings as well that can expose us. I think we need to think about playing one or the other. Against Brentford, I was much more of the vein of thought of thinking Kovacic playing in midfield would probably be more suitable for City, because we weren't likely to receive that many counter-attacks. I was quite wrong, to be honest, in that, because we did receive quite a few counter-attacks, but it wasn't anything to do with whether Akanji was in midfield or not, or Stones was in midfield or not. It's to do with the positions of Walker, and in this place where Akanji was not in midfield really, he was very much pushed as almost like a half wing-back type thing. Same with Kyle Walker being a wing-back, leaving very little behind for Ruben Diaz to look after pretty much everything. We can't do that away at Bournemouth. As much as I don't think Bournemouth are going to have, 40% possession. I think we're going to dominate the ball like we always do. It's just the moments, these individual moments, that scare the life out of me. And Bournemouth can pose a threat. They've got goals in their team as well. They can definitely find some goals. Good to see you, Ethan. Hope you're well. And Brendan as well. I love you too, mate. Cheers, Brendan. And let's go. What do you think Man City's number one transfer target should be in the summer? To be honest, I'd probably go Florian Wirtz. Just seeing what he's doing in the Bundesliga, I'd probably edge towards Wirtz, because I think we're seeing the problem with De Bruyne. He's been out for 5 months this season. That's another topic for this preview as well. De Bruyne, who picked up a niggle and sat on the bench, pointlessly sat on the bench. I completely disagree with Pep putting a player on the bench who he knows he isn't going to play. What a waste of a bench play. Just give that opportunity to a youngster to gain experience of match day experience, what it's like to be in the dressing room, listening to Pep Guardiola talk, give the team talks and things like that. That's vital experience for a kid that was wasted on De Bruyne, who he had no intention of playing. I don't get that. I completely disagree with that, in my opinion, which is not, I very rarely disagree with Pep, but disagree with that. Whether he's going to play in this game, that's a huge debate. I'm hoping he does, because I think we're going to need him. But in answer to your question, let's go. That's why I think Florian Wirtz should be our number one target, because I think he's the man who can fill the void eventually of Kevin De Bruyne being so young. He looks sensational, Florian Wirtz, and we could probably see him going on to fill that boots. And he's a slightly different player. He's a little bit more of a dribbler, a little bit more agility and dexterity compared to Kevin De Bruyne. But I think he's the man to do that job. Someone who's going to cost an absolute fortune, though. A fortune to pry him out of the arms of Bayer Leverkusen will not be an easy task for Taskin Shinawatra and the rest of the Man City board. It's going to be expensive. But yeah, behind them, I'd like to think about Kimmich, coming in and having him alongside Rodri. We could completely abandon Akanji and John Stones, because I think Kimmich could be an inverted fullback who could also replace. So it's two birds with one stone almost there. You could sort of fill the void of Kyle Walker, who's aging, and then you could also invert him potentially to play alongside Rodri. So there's no need for John Stones or Akanji in this debate of a centre back being in midfield. Kimmich's a midfielder right now. He's been moulded more of that way. His career's now more known as a midfielder than a fullback, but he did start as a fullback. So I think he could be, we could have multiple roles in giving Joshua Kimmich. So he's another player that City should be targeting. And then Tuna, I agree with you, mate. Paquetá. Lucas Paquetá is someone who's exciting, big physical presence. And it sounds likely that he is going to be a number one target. Personally, I'd go for Wirtz, but Paquetá that's an odd one, by the way. The Paquetá, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because all the betting allegations, he is so adamantly saying he's never made a bet in his life, handing over his phones and handing over his computer to say, yeah, have a look, mate, have a look. I've got nothing to hide. Something suspicious about that. The fact that it was Betway, the company that sponsor West Ham, the only people that said there's something suspicious about that. I feel like there's something gone on there. I might be putting my tinfoil hat on here and thinking about conspiracy theories. But honestly, it was fishy how it was like, right, we're going to lose our best player. West Ham were about to lose their best player to Manchester City, and they didn't want to do it. And then all of a sudden, the betting allegations came round the corner very shortly after the transfer saga started. Something odd about that. Hopefully, he gets it sorted. And then moving forward, we can go in for Paquetá. But for me, Paquetá, Wirtz, and Kimmich, that would be a pretty good summer for me. Maybe another player. I can't think off the top of my head anyone in particular, any positions that are weak right now. But I think that would certainly fill. Obviously, Savio coming in as well. So that would be like a fourth signing, albeit it feels like that's already pretty much done and dusted. That would be great. Wirtz, Kimmich, Savio, and Paquetá. That would be great. I'd be buzzing with that. Absolutely buzzing. Right, anyway, back to the preview for the Bournemouth game. Team news, Philip Billing is suspended. He's serving his last match after being sent a direct red card, 3-match suspension against Forest. I rate Philip Billing. He's a big guy. Bear with me when I say Yaya Toure. He does remind me of Yaya Toure. Nowhere near to the level of Yaya Toure, like a Wish.com Yaya Toure. Do you know what I mean? A knockoff version. Like a bootleg Yaya Toure. He's big, physical presence, can carry the ball. He's got a goal in him. If he gets that ball, he'll just put his hand on your chest and you ain't getting it near him. You physically can't get near him. Such a big unit. I think he's a great player. Nothing on Yaya Toure, but along that same level of midfield style, if that makes sense. He's missing, and I think that's a huge bonus for City because I think he can dominate Bournemouth's midfield, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they've been struggling since he's been suspended. I don't think that's a coincidence, as well as other team news for Bournemouth's perspective. Tyler Adams, Ryan Fredericks, Max Aarons, they are all injured, and probably none of them would get in the starting 11 anyway, other than Philip Billing. That's the only real miss for Bournemouth. As for City, still Gvardiol is out. Grealish is out, but could be close. And then the questions that I've already been talking about with regards to Kevin De Bruyne. But get your predictions in below as well. I want to see what your predictions for the scoreline is, as well as who do you want to start. Namely, do you think Kevin De Bruyne will start? And who do you start out of Oscar Bob and Jeremy Doku? That's what I'm interested in. I think they're the two areas of the pitch that are up for debate going into this game, whether Kevin De Bruyne starts or not starts. If he's got a niggle, do you want to risk him? Or do you think it's a case of just protect him a little bit further, maybe need him in games going up against better opposition than Bournemouth? With all due respect to Bournemouth, we've got tougher games coming up. Do we save him for that? But then do you put him on the bench, which I totally disagree with that. Tuna's gone 3-1 City and Bob to start. Oscar for Captain Harris as well. Enes Ünal as well. Yeah, no, I don't think he will. Just a donut, but he's a player, former City man. There was a lot of hype about Enes Ünal, wasn't there? The Turkish youngster that came through the City ranks. He looked like a good player, He looked like who was he alongside? What's his name now? I've forgotten his name. He was along, tip of my tongue, the Swedish lad. The Swedish lad we had up front coming through the academy who had like one game. Someone's going to say it in the chat. I need you to say it because I'm having a massive brain fart here. Blonde like Guidetti. There you go, Tuna. Nice one. Buzzing. That's what helps me with live, because you guys can back me up. Buzzing. Guidetti, absolutely. He was in that same vein of hype, wasn't he? Enes Unal. And then he sort of disappeared off the face of the earth for a little bit. Unal I'm talking about. And now he's back sitting on the bench for Bournemouth. Could we see him? Could we see him? I mean, that's nightmare scenario, isn't it? That's a nightmare scenario. Him coming back, some academy kid coming and taking points off Manchester City right now is the last thing we need. Last thing we need. But Grealish is touch and go as well. So that's an interesting one, whether he could start. I don't think he'll be playing, to be honest. So I think mainly it's Gvardiol and Jack Grealish. Foden has to go in midfield, says Captain Harris. Foden, who scored in his last 4 appearances against Bournemouth. So, yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. People are deluded. Apparently, Haaland doesn't get into Liverpool's 11. There's a debate going. I saw that. Yeah, I mean, it would be daft for me. I would. The issue is Darwin Núñez is currently on form, isn't he? He's actually playing well, Darwin Núñez. Just Haaland's record in front of goal, you just can't match it. You know, the amount of opportunities over the course of a season. Right now, it's recency bias, isn't it? Liverpool fans are just wanking themselves silly over the idea of Darwin Núñez as a superstar, and he's playing very well. But there's too many opportunities, kind of similar to Haaland this season. A little lately in the last 4 or 5 games, he's been missing opportunities. But Darwin Núñez is always done that for me. I haven't seen him hit a vein of form yet, Darwin Núñez, where he can be consistent. I can hang my hat on him and say, yeah, mate, that guy's going to bang that in. He went through a one-on-one. Who was it against? Was it against Brentford? It was a lovely finish. The little chip over Flecken. Bloody Flecken. Sick of saying that guy's name. And certainly conceding 4 against Liverpool. Where was that worldy of a performance? But anyway, yeah, lovely finish from Darwin Núñez. But did any Liverpool fan genuinely believe he was going to do that? I mean, he might have confidence now, having done that. He might, going forward, he might continue to prove people wrong and silence the critics. Maybe. But the next time he goes through on goal, are you going to fully are you going to put a bet on him to say that's going in the back of the net with Darwin Núñez? Whereas when Erling Haaland goes through against Brentford, there was a small little bit of doubt in my feelings when he went through on goal, because I was going off the recency bias of the Chelsea performance. So yeah, I can see why the last 3-4 games people are saying no, Darwin Núñez would play ahead of Erling Haaland, but the game can't be played like that going off for 3 or 4 games. Let's look at the last 2 seasons. Yeah? Or their entire careers. Let's do that. Should we do that? That's a bit fairer. In which case, Haaland just grabs Darwin Núñez and puts him in the bin. Very, very simple. Haaland destroys him over the 2 career paths that they've taken. So, no, for me, absolutely, he gets in. And I'd probably play Darwin Núñez on the left and play Mo Salah on the right and Erling Haaland in the middle. Diogo Jota would be up for debate in there as well. But for me, that would be Liverpool's front 3. So, yes, Haaland would get into the Liverpool starting 11, and I agree with you, MJG. Drought effects. Doku defo has a lot of work on right now. Would defo prefer Grealish over Doku? I think the majority are with you there, to be honest. But the question now isn't really. We've changed the debate, mate. Get with the times, Drought effects. We've moved on. It's now Oscar Bob and Doku. That's the argument now. And I mean, no, to be honest, I don't want to argue about it at all. I'd rather just be happy at the fact that Manchester City have multiple players that we can make the most of, you know, the abundance of quality that we've got on that left-hand side, all offering something different as well. Tools that can be used for different jobs. You know what I mean? That's great for City. So we need to be counting our lucky stars. Ethan misses Ferran Torres. He was a weird one, wasn't he? I mean, financially, it was a great bit of business, but he's not really hit the heights at Barcelona. He's done okay. Average-ish, done all right. Moments that I've seen of him, it's like, wow, unbelievable stuff from Ferran Torres, but still, yeah, Tuna thinks we need a right winger. But, right, anyway, I was going to look at the predicted starting 11s as well, so let's have a quick look at that, hopefully. Give us a sec. I'll be back in a minute. I'll sort this mic. There we go. Can you hear me now? All good? Muted. Am I still muted? Can you hear me? Hopefully you can hear me. There you go. There you go. That's right. I crashed, mate. See, where's Maskless? He was calling me an amateur yesterday. I've let you down, Maskless. I've let you down, mate. I've let you down, mate. I do apologise. 100% amateur. I'm going to go away and have a think about what I've done. Good. Anyway, let's get on with it. But anyway, kind of good that I was muted, because you should have heard the bollocks that I was talking about while I was muted. So I kind of got away with that. I was talking about Netto, the supermarkets. Would you believe it or not? So kind of good that I was muted. Even though I've kind of carried on that conversation with myself anyway. But who remembers Netto supermarkets? Because there's quite a few Nettos in the Premier League now, isn't there? Bought out by Aldi. Anyone who's not in the UK will be wondering what the hell I'm talking about. But Netto supermarkets, they were cheap. Anyway, in defence, I think we're going to see Adam Smith at right back, who's been a decent player. Marcus Senesi in centre back, alongside Ilya Zabani in centre back, and then Lloyd Kelly at left back, which to me is a back four that can be beaten. Let's be honest, it's a back four that we should be beating. In front of them, Lewis Cook, who has been quite reliable for them this season in defensive midfield. He's been a good little, tidy little player. Normally you'd see Philip Billing here alongside him, maybe in front of them. But Ryan Christie's been given the job of tucking in alongside Lewis Cook lately, and I feel like it'll be the same again for Bournemouth. And in front of them, Justin Kluivert, son of Patrick Kluivert, absolute legend of the game. Not quite living up to the heights of his father, but still, you know, he's a tidy little player, dangerous, good technical player. On the wings, I think we're likely going to see what we've spoke about already, Marcus Tavernier, and who will be on the left, actually. And Semenyo, if I can find the little guy. Where is he? There he is. Antoine Semenyo and Dominic Solanke, who is going to be the focal threat for Bournemouth, someone that we need to be so mindful of, the ability to bring it down. They can go direct, they can go down the channels for speed, they can knock it into the channels, they can also hit Dominic Solanke direct, you know. So I'm worried about their front three mainly. Justin Kluivert can prop them up a little bit with a good bit of technicality, but still, Tavernier and Semenyo and Solanke, that's the worry. That's the worry in this game. And if we can keep them quiet, nullify any sort of potential counter-attacks from them, which is a lot to do with the attack, by the way. We are worried about the positions of our defenders. But if we're good with the ball, if we maintain possession as well as we know we can do, maintain our attacks, keep Rodri propping up those attacks. You know, he's got the sweeper job of keeping any sort of potential counter-attacks, getting beyond him. Once you've bypassed Rodri, that's when we're in trouble. And you don't need to physically bypass him. You can just knock it past him with the ball, and that's the issue. And if we can prevent that, we're winning this game. We're winning this game. Now, Manchester City, let's get on to what the predicted starting 11 from my point of view is as well. Get in the chat as well. I want to hear what you think. Who do I want after Ederson? I've no idea, mate. No idea about that. You know, what goalkeeper in the world can do what Ederson does? You know, because the job that he provides for Manchester City is there aren't many keepers out there with the ball ability. You know, just the general footballing ability. His technical ability is just ridiculous for a goalkeeper, and the level of composure. You know, there would be so many. Just to carry on speaking about Ederson, he's going to be in net for us most likely, of course. Ortega, Shantani suggests. Possibly, but I think we've got 3, 4 more, maybe 5 more years of Ederson. How old is he now? He's like 32, isn't he? I mean, he could be going till 35, 36. I don't see what's wrong. The issue might be a loss of pace because of his ability to come out, you know, the sweeper keeper role that Ederson does so well, sitting on the edge of the area for the majority of the game, and any of those long balls that make us susceptible to counter-attacks. He does a lot of nullifying that. You know, he does really good job of anything that's overhit. He gobbles up, gets rid of it. And he gets rid of it composed as well. A lot of them, he'll come down, he'll bring it down, chest it, knock it to a fullback. I love him. I absolutely love Ederson. I don't think everyone does at City either. I think City fans are a bit torn on him because I think some City fans see goalkeepers a little bit more traditionally. I understand that. They want a better shot stopper, someone who doesn't let as many in as Ederson does. I don't think Ederson's bad, by the way. He's not a bad shot stopper. But he's, could be better in that department. Could be better. Ortega probably pips him in that area of goalkeeping. But the rest, for me, Ederson suits City perfectly. Brendan's gone 3-0. Mahmood says, why does nobody respect Ederson? I just don't understand why. I think people respect him, but I know what you mean. There's a bit of, we'll look back at him. The issue with finding a goalkeeper to replace Ederson is the difficulty of getting used to Pep Guardiola's style of football. Claudio Bravo came, and he was meant to be this expert player who can play with his feet, and he could to an extent, but even he wasn't good enough in my book. He was kicking it out for throw-ins quite frequently, and everything that was hit his way went into the back of the net from Claudio Bravo. He was a poor goalkeeper in truth. He saved us a few times, though. He won us a few penalty shootouts. One away at Leicester in a League Cup game or an FA Cup game. I can't remember which cup. And I think he won us a League Cup final in a penalty shootout as well. But how many keepers are out there that can do what Ederson can do? Andre Onana was meant to be that sort of player, Look how he's doing. He went from Inter Milan Champions League final winning side, playing unbelievable, saving great shots from Erling Haaland in that Champions League final. A sound, solid, reliable goalkeeper at Inter Milan. To someone who's just flaky, man, and just can't really trust him. He's okay, and now he's sort of retrieved his form a little bit, Onana, but I still don't trust him entirely. And that's the issue with changing football clubs and goalkeepers and how well Ederson has done turning up at Manchester City, and just he's been solid from day one, with his feet. City fans took a while to get used to the style, wasn't it? We went from Joe Hart to Claudio Bravo, and that was our sort of transitioning period. What the bloody hell is Pep doing here? Joe Hart leaving, great decision in the end. Of course, it made sense because Joe Hart can't play with his feet at all. Claudio Bravo came in and gave us a little taste of how life could be if we got it right. Ederson comes in, bang on the money from day one. With his feet, bang on the money from day one with so much confidence. Linny, I think you're right. Play till he's 40. The only issue is speed, you know what I mean? And even though keepers are a little bit more, they're given a bit more leeway from an injury perspective, because you need your thighs, you need your calves, you need your legs to make saves. People think that, and that's just traditional goalkeeping. You need those muscles. So even picking up niggly hamstring injuries or any sort of injury in your leg, it's going to stop you from saving shots. That's point one. But Manchester City have other priorities in their goalkeeper. It's not just saving shots. We got rid of James Trafford. How we talked so highly about him. £19 million fee for James Trafford. How bad does he look at Burnley? It looks like we've done it looks like highway robbery. 19 million. He looks well out of his depth. And he was meant to be the best shot stopper since sliced bread. He was going to be this next England's number one. And he did really well in the England under-21 tournaments, didn't he? Pulling off that save against Spain in the final. Unbelievable performance. Now at Burnley, disaster. Absolute disaster. I feel for him. And I don't feel for the bank account of Manchester City, though. 19 million we got for him. Unbelievable. Unbelievable bit of business. Right. Moving on. Defence. Linny, look at Shilton now, mate. Yeah, Shilton's ridiculous. I'm going to go with Kyle Walker at right centre-back. And I'm going to go with Ruben Diaz, who for me has lately upped his game to a level that we've grown to expect. I feel like at the start of the season, I felt like he did this last season, because don't forget last season we had a World Cup slap bang in the middle of the season, which was really disruptive. And I think a lot of players last season, prior to the World Cup, were looking at the World Cup and thinking, right, I don't want to get injured. I want to play at 80%, 90%. Just careful. If I get an injury, I'm going to miss the biggest tournament of my life. Because Ruben Diaz in particular, who's in the peak of his career, that would have been his biggest World Cup moment. A lot of these players, I felt like prior to the World Cup, were looking after themselves a little bit and going in a little bit half-heartedly. And I think Ruben Diaz was one of the biggest culprits of that last season. After the World Cup, he was an absolute tank. He came back and was so good in the second half of the season. I don't know what his excuse is this season because he's having that similar half and half season again this season. I feel like he wasn't as good at the start of the season, Ruben Diaz, but there's no World Cup to look out for. But the last 6-7 games, Ruben Diaz for me has been solid as a rock. Solid as a rock, and he's been dealing with genuine threats. Ivan Toney, he did really well against Ivan Toney. I thought he was great against Brentford, and big physical battles that he's coming out more often than not winning most of them. Not all of them, but he's winning most of them. You can't expect him to win all of them, but he's doing really, really well. And he's posing a bit of a threat. I feel like there's a goal on the cards for Ruben Diaz in the next couple of games because he's been coming forward and getting chances, winning aerial duels from corners. He even got a shot away that was an instinctual shot in the first half against Brentford where he whipped it. If he could get that either side of Flecken, you're looking at 1-0. But yeah, I'm really pleased with Ruben Diaz, someone who has to be in the team for me. Nathan Ake, who was rested against Brentford, I think he has to come back in. As much as I enjoyed Manuel Akanji's performance at left back, I think this could be a good opportunity to rest Akanji. So I'm going to put Nathan Ake at left centre back. What do you think, though? What do you think about the back three so far? I'm curious to see, would you go Akanji in there? Would you drop Walker? I feel like everyone would agree that Diaz has to go in there. Diaz has to go in there. But yeah, get your thoughts in the chat. In front of them, this is where the debate starts for me. Do you go with Akanji? Do you go with John Stones? MTS, mate, top man. Appreciate that. Becoming a typical City supporter. Anyone who's looking to do the same can find the link in the description. Top man, MTS. Really appreciate the support. Legend, mate. Thank you so much. In front of them, John Stones for me. And I'm doing that because of Dominic Solanke. And the fact that I want to see John Stones play another game because it's not like he's got an injury record that isn't great. Manuel Akanji has probably spent about a day, maybe I think this season. In fact, he got an injury, didn't he? Who was it against? It was at the Etihad. He had an awkward landing. I can't remember who it was against. It was against a right winger that had just come onto the pitch, and it was a really awkward landing. It looked like a serious injury as well, by the way. But he came back like 2 games later. And that's like the most we've ever seen Manuel Akanji injured for. So, you know, that's reliability as much. It's a cruel game. You know, this is a business industry at the end of the day. We need to think about it a little bit more along the business side of things rather than the personal favoritism side of things. Because I do think most people prefer John Stones over Akanji. Me too. But the problem is John Stones' injury record is terrible. Terrible. And Manuel Akanji, for me, he doesn't get injured. I'd still try John Stones for this game, though. I'd still go John Stones in midfield, pushing in and out of that centre-back role. And the reason why I think we've got to start players with the formation like this on the team sheet is because it tends to be like that with the ball and like that without the ball, isn't it? That's how it looks without the ball. But how often do we not have the ball? So you kind of have to set the team up how it looks for the majority of the game. In terms of a heat map, you're going to see John Stones like there for the majority of well, actually there, to be honest, for the heat map. But still, you know, that's how I think the team should set up for the majority of the game with John Stones. Of course, the man next to him has to be Mateo Kovacic. I nearly got you there. No, Rodri. Rodri alongside John Stones. Some of your hearts sank then, didn't they? Like, what? No Rodri. Again, we've got another debate ahead of these two. In does Kevin De Bruyne start? I think we need to hear, because I've gone early with my preview, by the way, today as well. Normally I do the preview the day before, so I have gone quite early with this one because I'm going out with my son. It's half term here in the UK for anyone who's not in the UK, which means my lad's off from school. I'm going to go take him out and do a few things with him tomorrow. So I'm going to have a day off with him tomorrow because I don't get many opportunities to do that anymore with him being at school. So I've gone early with the preview today, which means I don't know what Pep's going to say about the injuries for Kevin De Bruyne in particular. The one concern for me, does he start, does he not start? Let's assume he's fit, and if he's fit, then he starts. So I'm going to put Kevin De Bruyne in there. What do we do if he's not fit, though? Would probably be Julian Alvarez. But for me, Phil Foden has to go in alongside him. I tried to do this. This was my predicted starting 11 pretty much against Brentford. I think I put Kovacic in there instead of John Stones. Up front, of course, is Erling Haaland. Now, on the right, I want to have that control and width. I want to see the width from Bernardo Silva. Someone who can receive the ball, get those balls. He's a little bit wasted out there, I'll give you that. I feel like Bernardo Silva is more effective in the middle of the pitch. Similar to Foden, though, but I feel like Foden on form right now is more effective than Bernardo Silva in the middle of the park. And I feel like Bernardo Silva can do a better job than Foden on the right wing. So I feel like it's a no-brainer for me. Now, the issue would be if Pep decides to invert Bernardo Silva and we have something more like this, where it ends up being looking like that and bloody Kyle Walker pushes forward. On the left-hand side, by the way, I'm going to go with Oscar Bob, who I think deserves a start. That's the issue. If the team ends up looking like this, that scares the life out of me from an attacking point of view. It's fantastic going forward. Look at that. You know what I mean? Absolutely throwing the kitchen sink at Bournemouth. You know, they're going to have difficulty stopping us from scoring with a team like that. I get that. But the opportunity for them to counter-attack and getting Tavernier into these channels here and Semenyo into these channels, it's alarmingly large amount of space. It's a scary amount of space that we've been affording our opposition. And it's nothing new. So, but on paper, this is how I would like to see the team start. And I'd like Kyle to stay there for the majority of the game. Maybe occasionally, opportunistic moments, get forward here and there. But majority of the time, I'd like him to stay wide, Oscar Bob to stay wide, and force these players out wide. You know, stretch them. Adam Smith, keep them wide. You know, ask Semenyo to get back rather than stay forward, knowing that Bernardo Silva, it's easier for him to stay forward if Bernardo Silva's inside. Stretching them asks more questions. And I feel like Kevin De Bruyne tucking in there, Phil Foden tucking in there. It gets compact in the middle, and that's the issue. But that's what John Stones and Rodri, for me, gets more of a license to come forward. Because Kovacic and Rodri, out of those two central midfielders, defensive midfielders, you'd rather have Rodri as the deeper one, who's a bit more of a defensive mind compared to Kovacic. But I still believe that John Stones can play alongside him, but out of the two then, with Rodri and John Stones, I feel like John Stones is more of a defensive mind. In which case, I think John Stones can sit more, giving Rodri that ability to prop up attacks. Do you know what I mean? And prevent counter-attacks and anything coming the other way. He's going to sit here. Nathan Ake is going to sit here for the majority of the game. And, I feel like the majority of the game will end up looking like this. But there's still... there's still susceptibilities there. I just feel like the counter-attacks are protected here, and it's like occasionally get forward. I don't feel the need to throw everything at Bournemouth like that. It was really exciting to watch us away at the G-Tech Community Stadium because that was like Gvardiol was left wing, right, Walker was right wing. That was really exciting to watch and aggressive. I love the attacking mentality from Pep Guardiola in that regard. That's really good. But it's just the other way. And I'm repeating myself now because I just feel like it's too open at the back. I really think it's too open at the back. But that's my preview. That's my predicted starting 11s for Manchester City. I'm going to go quite bold with this one because I'm quietly confident. I'm going to go 4-0, which is something I don't really do. I don't really go that bold. I feel like we've got to make a statement performance as well, with Liverpool doing what they did against Luton, putting 4 past them. The goal difference is creeping up as well. The gap's getting bigger with Arsenal scoring 11 goals in 2 games. Liverpool put 4 past Brentford and 4 past Luton. They're not just beating teams, they're doing it convincingly. Whereas we're like, 1-1 against Chelsea, 1-0 against Brentford. Jokey girl, thanks very much. I am nearly at 11k. That would be huge if this helps me get over it. I don't know if I am near it, to be honest. I can't remember what I'm on. I think I'm on 10.8 now. 10.8, something like that. But it's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me in the chat as well. And if you could drop a like, if you're watching this after the fact as well, please drop a like on the stream and subscribe if you're new. Like MTS has done, massive respect to you, my friend. Big up to MTS for becoming a typical City supporter. If anyone else is interested in that, come and join me in the watch long if you can as well, MTS, because you get some wonderful emojis. Good to see you in there as well, Russ. 1-0 City you've gone for, which I'd take the result, mate, but there is still a bit of a... it feels like we're scraping over the line against teams, 1-0 City would be a great result because we've won, clean sheet. Nothing wrong with it in that regard, but it's just knowing what... There you go, Tuna, putting everyone on display. Anyone who wondering who the hell that is, that's Jeff, who is a regular watch-along viewer, who is a massive part of this channel now. But yeah, big up to Jeff and big up to MTS for becoming a typical City supporter. But yeah, no, with regards to 1-0, Russ, it's a good result, but it's still like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, how many 1-0s are we going to get away with? You know, I'd like to see us convincingly beat Bournemouth. I really would. But yeah, get your comments in the comment sections below. Let us know your predictions. Let us know who you would start out of Jeremy Doku or Oscar Bob. Would you play Kevin De Bruyne, factoring in what Pep Guardiola said after the game? Really curious about that. But like I said, my prediction is 4-0. Thanks so much for joining me in the chat as well. Take care, Blues, and I'll see you in the next one.